Hi everyone. Today, Foon and I want to discuss an important issue that affects many, but it's often overlooked question, which is the impact of globalization on people with disabilities in Hong Kong. And as we live in an increasingly interconnected world, globalization has influenced every aspect of our lives, our jobs, education, technology, and even social attitudes. But how does this affect one of the most marginalized communities in Hong Kong? By the end of this presentation, I hope we can better understand the opportunities and challenges that globalization brings to people with disabilities and explore what we as individuals, students, and future professionals can do to make a difference. So I'll first have some brief introduction and background information about people with disabilities in Hong Kong. Let's start with a simple question. What is globalization? In basic terms, globalization refers to the increasing interaction between countries through trade, culture, technology, and policies. It has led to an economic growth, technological advancements, and greater cultural exchange. But it has also widened inequalities and created many new challenges for vulnerable groups. So why do we focus on people with disabilities in Hong Kong? Because despite advances in human rights and accessibility laws, many people with disabilities still struggle with fundamental issues, for example, finding jobs and even moving around the cities and being fully included in society. They often face discrimination, both direct and indirect. So the main question want to explore today is, has globalization made life easier or harder for people with disabilities in Hong Kong? The answer is complex. We'll look at both the benefits and drawbacks before discussing solutions. And before we dive into globalization impact, let's understand the reality people with disability face in Hong Kong. According to government reports, about 7.1% of Hong Kong's population, or around 500,000 people, live with disabilities. However, many remain invisible in public spaces and workplaces because of accessibility barriers. And employment is one of the biggest struggles for people with disabilities. While Hong Kong has unemployment rate of around 2 to 3%, for people with disabilities, it is much higher. In fact, only 30% of working age people with disabilities have jobs. Why? Many companies hesitate to hire people with disability due to misconceptions about their abilities or concerns over workplace accommodations. Hong Kong has made some improvements in accessibility, but many public places, buildings, and even websites still pose challenges. If you were blind or used a wheelchair, imagine how difficult it would be to navigate NTR stations, cross busy streets, or even access digital services that lack screen reader compatibility. And culturally, there's still stigma surrounding disabilities. Many people with disability experience social exclusion or pity rather than empowerment. Some families even feel ashamed of having a disabled member, leading to isolation. This makes it harder for people with disabilities to participate fully in society. So now that we understand the struggles people with disability face, let's see how globalization has impacted their lives, both positively and negatively. Despite the challenges, Globalization has led to some major improvements for people with disability. Let's explore three key areas: technology, policy influence, and also medical advances. One of the biggest benefits of globalization is the rise of assistive technology. Thanks to global innovation, people with disability now have access to AI-powered devices, for example, smart wheelchairs that adjust to terrain, and voice recognition software which helps them with mobility or speech impairments. They can also have access to hearing aids and co- co- cochlear implants, which is more affordable and effective than ever before. And companies like Apple and Microsoft are investing in accessibility features, making technology more inclusive for everyone. And globalization has also spread awareness about disability rights. The United Nations Convention on Rights of Persons with Disability, which Hong Kong follows, has pushed for more inclusive policies. As a result, businesses and governments are being held more accountable for accessibility and equal opportunities. And thanks to globalization, medical research and healthcare for people with disabilities have improved. Advanced prosthetics, better rehabilitation therapies, and new treatment for conditions like cerebral palsy or spinal cord injuries are now available in Hong Kong. While these are great advancements, globalization has also brought new challenges that we cannot ignore. Unfortunately, globalization has also worsened some inequalities for people with disabilities. So one of the biggest issues is the economic disadvantages, which is the job market challenges. As companies expand globally, competition for jobs increases. Many businesses prioritize efficiency and productivity, making it harder for people with disability to compete. Automation is another problem. Jobs that people with disability once held, like repetitive manual tasks, are now being replaced by machines. Instead of creating new opportunities, globalization sometimes excludes people with disability from the workforce. And culturally, Hong Kong used to have strong family-based supported system, but as globalization brings more Western-style independence, traditional family caregiving is weakening. Many people with disability now have fewer family members able to take care of them. And although technology has helped many, not all people with disability can afford or access it. Advanced assistive devices are expensive, and digital platforms are not always accessible. For example, many job applications or online banking services don't support screen readers, making them difficult for visually impaired individuals to see. These challenges show that while globalization brings progress, it also leaves some people behind. So what we can do to make sure no one is excluded. Creating an inclusive society isn't the responsibility of just one group. It takes action from government, businesses, NGOs, and educational institutions. Let's break it down. Hong Kong has disability laws like the Disability Discrimination Ordinance, but enforcement is weak. The government should implement stricter hiring quotas for companies and improve public infrastructure to be more people with disabilities friendly. And some companies, like Swire Group, have introduced inclusive hiring policies, but many businesses still overlook people with disability. More companies need to follow global models, such as Google, which actively recruits employees with disabilities. Organizations like the Hong Kong Society for Rehabilitation provide essential support for people with disability, but they need more resources. Supporting these groups through volunteering or funding can have a direct impact. And also, schools, and universities should ensure accessibility, provide scholarship for people with disabilities, and integrate disability awareness into their curriculums. Students can also play an active role in advocating for inclusion. So next part, let's move on to some case studies.
I will share two success stories, and the first one is SWI Group. The SWI Group has been a leader in inclusive hiring and creating accessible workplaces. By collaborating with NGOs like Hong Kong Society for Rehabilitation, SWI provides tailored workplace accommodations such as ergonomic workstations and AI-driven technologies like speech-to-text software. And this initiative has enabled employees with disabilities to thrive in roles ranging from administration to customer service. Notably, SWI report a 25% increase in productivity in departments with inclusive teams. By implementing policies that promote diversity and inclusion, SWI Group has demonstrated how businesses can positively impact the lives of people with disabilities. So the next story is about the Hong Kong MTR. It has made significant strides in improving accessibility for people with disabilities. And it also transformed its infrastructure. Over 95% of MTR stations now feature elevators, tactile paving, and braille signage. Voice assist navigation systems, which is introduced in 2020, have reduced commuting barriers for visual impaired passengers. These initiatives have greatly enhanced the commuting experience for disabled individuals, and it reflects how global advocacy can drive localized change. Despite some positive efforts, many workplaces still lack inclusion. Only 30% of people with disabilities in Hong Kong are employed, as mentioned before, and compared to 68% of general population. Automation and global competition disproportionately displace low-skilled workers with disabilities, exacerbating economic marginalization. For example, manufacturing roles, which are traditionally accessible to people with disabilities, have declined by 40% since 2010 due to outsourcing. And for educational barriers, accessibility in education remains a significant challenge. Only 3 universities in Hong Kong meet full accessibility standards. Students with mobility impairments often face delays in accessing lecture halls, while deaf students lack real-time captioning services. This exclusion limits their ability to compete in a globalized job market. So, what can be done? Let's talk about it from the perspective of government, corporate, and the public. So, for government, it should enforce stronger disability employment quotas and stricter accessibility laws. For example, strengthen the disability discrimination ordinance by mandating stricter penalties for non-compliance. Moreover, Japan's add-on employment promotion of persons with disabilities enforces a 2% employment quota for large firms, which is a good model that Hong Kong could adopt. And the government can also allocate public funds to subsidize assistive technologies and retrofit older buildings with ramps and elevators. For corporate, businesses should adopt more inclusive hiring policies and make necessary workplace modifications for accessibility. And it can partner with NGOs like to create internship pipelines for people with disabilities. Companies like Microsoft Hong Kong have launched accessibility hiring programs offering mentorship and flexible work arrangements. Inclusive practices not only benefit disabled employees, but also enhance corporate social responsibility and reputation. And they can also develop apps like Access Now Hong Kong, a platform mapping accessible venues to provide convenience for people with disabilities and for public. Changing public perception through education and media is crucial. For example, launch media campaigns featuring people with disability as leaders to challenge stereotypes. Highlighting the capabilities and contributions of people with disabilities can help reduce stigma and promote a more inclusive society. So, apart from that, as a student, what can we do? So, we can join local NGOs like Rehab Power, which connects students with people with disabilities for skill building workshops. And volunteering not only helps the community, but also raises awareness and fosters empathy among students. For campus advocacy, we can advocate for more accessible facilities on campus. We can push for improvements in physical accessibility, digital resources, and inclusive policies that benefit all members of the university community. For instance, City University of Hong Kong now provides lecture recordings with subtitles benefiting deaf students. And we can also organize accessibility audits to identify campus barriers, such as uneven pathways or inaccessible restrooms. And we can also use platforms like Instagram or TikTok to highlight the struggles of people with disabilities. Campaigns like hashtag Accessible Hong Kong can create a more supportive and understanding environment for disabled individuals. In conclusion, globalization has both positive and negative impacts on people with disabilities in Hong Kong. While it brings technological advancements and global advocacy, it also creates economic and social challenges. Small changes can lead to a more inclusive world, whether through government policies, corporate responsibility, or individual actions. Everyone has a role to play in promoting accessibility and inclusion. So that's all we want to share, and thank you.